As I'm walking up to the courthouse, I'm just thinking, I got 2 babies that love me. I got a wonderful boyfriend. I'm about to move into a bigger place.
Tammy Slaton's story, as one of the most recognizable faces from 1,000 Pound Sisters, has evolved into something far greater than a reality TV weight loss journey, transforming into a deeply personal narrative of resilience, vulnerability, and the ongoing pursuit of independence. Yet despite shedding over 500 pounds and undergoing skin removal surgery, one question continues to hover over her like an unshakable shadow. Can Tammy drive now? And if not, will she ever? Born into a family where obesity had already taken root as a generational struggle, Tammy grew up watching loved ones battle health issues linked to weight. And as she moved into her early 30s, she found herself on the same dangerous path, tipping the scales at nearly 700 pounds. Her size wasn't just a number, it was a physical prison that seeped into every corner of her life, stripping her of the ability to perform even the simplest self-care, enjoy the outdoors, travel, or complete daily errands without help, and forcing her to rely on family members and friends for transportation, shopping, and basic mobility. When she first appeared on Season 1 of 1,000 Pound Sisters in 2020, Tammy's situation was dire, and although she initially struggled to fully commit to weight loss, a severe health scare acted as a turning point, leading her to a rehab facility, where she could begin serious work on her physical well-being. By 2022, after years of small victories and frustrating setbacks, she met the medical requirements for bariatric surgery, which became a game changer over the following 3 years. She shed more than 500 pounds through not just surgery, but lifestyle changes that required patience, discipline, and a willingness to confront deeply ingrained habits. In 2024, her attention turned to the loose, excess skin left behind by her transformation. Skin that caused discomfort and acted as a lingering reminder of her former body, prompting consultations with surgeons and ultimately leading to her undergoing a skin removal procedure in early 2025, an operation that she proudly unveiled in Season 7 of the show. This physical rebirth, however, could not instantly erase years of limitations. One of the most stubborn being her inability to drive, a skill that for many is a rite of passage in adolescence, but for Tammy had remained out of reach well into adulthood. Over the years, her sister Amy, her brother Chris, and other relatives had taken on the responsibility of chauffeuring her to appointments, events, and everyday errands, a dependence that sometimes strained relationships, especially when Tammy's social life, fueled at times by excessive partying, meant additional late-night pickups and special trips. While Tammy has admitted in interviews, including a candid moment with News, that she does want to learn to drive, she has also been honest about her anxiety surrounding it, explaining that with everything going on in her life, she prefers to take baby steps. She joked about having driven a golf cart before, noting that it wasn't particularly fast, which made it less intimidating, and admitted that speed itself is one of her major triggers. Fan speculation has grown over whether Tammy's reluctance could create friction within her family, especially now that her siblings have their own commitments and may not always be available. But Tammy's hesitation is not without cause. On a recent episode of the Creative Chaos podcast, produced by Al Film Company, she revealed a chilling past experience where she and the driver of a car both began dozing off on the road, leaving her to try and stay awake to help guide him even though she didn't know how to drive. A moment that left a lasting mark on her confidence. Her encounters behind the wheel, limited as they are, have been memorable for both good and bad reasons. In one well-known scene from 1,000 Pound Sisters, Tammy climbed into a golf cart with her brother Chris, grinning ear to ear as she took off at a surprisingly high speed, only for the thrill to turn into panic as she veered toward a tree and narrowly avoided a crash brush with danger that jolted her back into cautiousness. Yet beneath her hesitation lies ambition, Tammy has publicly confessed that her dream car is a classic Ford Mustang GT, which she fondly calls an old-fashioned Stang, a vehicle known for its powerful engine, performance, and style, and one that offers a roomy interior that would fit her needs while still providing the sense of fun and flair she craves. On the same podcast, she spoke about her lingering fear of semi-trucks, confessing that the idea of being in a car near a large lorry and possibly disappearing into its blind spot still unnerves her. Despite these fears, she emphasized that she hasn't ruled out learning to drive, saying eventually, "Yes, I do want to learn." Framing the skill not just as a convenience, but as a vital step toward full independence after years of relying on others. For Tammy, driving isn't simply about transportation, it's about reclaiming autonomy, breaking away from the enforced dependence of her heavier years, and proving to herself and those watching that her transformation is more than skin deep. Still, as anyone who has battled both physical and mental barriers knows, the road to that kind of empowerment is rarely straightforward. Her journey is complicated by the reality that, while weight loss has given her new capabilities, it hasn't erased anxiety, fear, or the scars of past experiences. And each step toward that driver's license will require her to balance ambition with self-compassion. Fans remain divided, some urging her to push past her fears and embrace the freedom that driving would bring. Others cautioning that rushing into it could trigger stress and setbacks, but all agree that whatever Tammy decides, her story will continue to inspire, challenge, and evolve, just as it has since the day she first invited the world into her struggle and triumph.
To meet you.
Yeah.
Did you pass the test yet?
Yeah, she go pass the test.
Tammy Slaton's remarkable transformation from the immobile, oxygen-dependent woman viewers first met on 1,000-pound sisters into someone who can walk freely, fit comfortably into a standard car seat, and celebrate her post-surgery milestones has been nothing short of inspiring. Yet, despite shedding over 500 pounds after her 2022 bariatric surgery and a 2025 skin removal operation, a crucial marker of independence driving remains an elusive goal, and the reasons for her hesitation are as complex as her journey itself. At her peak weight of 725 pounds, Tammy lived in what could only be described as a prison of immobility. Walking even a few steps was exhausting. Bathing required help, and leaving the house meant specialized arrangements including modified vans, with middle seats removed so she could sit on the floor as standard seating couldn't accommodate her size. Oxygen tanks were a constant companion, and even short trips became logistical undertakings. Her siblings, especially her sister Amy and her brother Chris, became her lifeline, chauffeuring her to doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and the occasional social outing, but their help also underlined the depth of her dependence, as without them, she simply couldn't move through the world. There was a public humiliation element too, with strangers staring or whispering as she maneuvered into unconventional seating arrangements. Moments that etched into her memory and fed her anxiety about transportation. The turning point came when she qualified for bariatric surgery, committing not only to the operation, but to the lifestyle changes that followed. And in 2025, her skin removal procedure marked another huge leap forward, both physically and emotionally. She no longer needed a wheelchair or oxygen, could walk unassisted, and in a moment that brought tears to her eyes and those of fans, she sat in the front seat of a car for the first time in nearly 20 years, buckling a seatbelt without an extender, a seemingly small act that represented years of struggle and determination. But one hurdle persisted: getting behind the wheel herself. On paper, the conditions were finally right. Her mobility had improved dramatically. Her stamina was better and she could physically handle a driver's seat. But driving is as much a mental challenge as a physical one. And Tammy's apprehensions stem from more than just inexperience. In a revealing interview on the Creative Chaos podcast, She recounted a near-fatal car ride where both she and the driver began nodding off. Okay. With no driving skills to draw upon, she stayed awake, trying to keep him alert, but the incident left her shaken, acutely aware of how vulnerable she felt in situations where she wasn't in control. That fear only deepened when combined with another experience, the infamous golf cart scene from 1,000-Pound Sisters where Tammy, initially thrilled to be steering, veered dangerously close to a tree, forcing Chris to yell instructions about braking just in time to avoid a crash. What started as a confidence boost quickly turned into a reminder of how easily things could go wrong. Her fear of driving is compounded by anxieties about traffic, especially large semi-trucks whose blind spots make her uneasy. She has openly said that the idea of being alongside them on the road is enough to deter her from lessons for now. Yet in contrast to these fears lies a spark of ambition. Her dream car is a classic Ford Mustang GT, or as she fondly calls it, an old-fashioned Stang. Chosen not just for its style and horsepower, but also for the practicality of its spacious interior. A detail reflecting how her mind still balances aesthetics with function after years of living in a body that limited her choices. The tension between her desire for independence and the mental block preventing her from driving has not gone unnoticed by fans or her family. Chris, in particular, has expressed a mix of support and concern, understanding her fears yet aware that her continued reliance on others for transport could become a point of strain as everyone juggles their own lives. Online, fan reactions are split. Urge her to push through and see driving as the final, liberating step in her transformation, while others believe she should take her time, pointing out that her journey has always been about moving at a pace that protects both her physical and mental health. For Tammy, the path to a driver's license is about far more than learning the mechanics of steering, accelerating, and braking. It's about dismantling years of internalized fear, proving to herself that she can take control not just of a vehicle but of her life, and ensuring that when she does finally get behind the wheel of that Mustang, it will be as someone who's ready not just to drive, but to own every mile ahead.
So y'all ain't gotta worry about it. Tammy, she wanted me to cancel it, so I canceled it.
No, she did not. There was nobody.
Tammy Slaton's transformation since the early days of 1,000-Pound Sisters has been nothing short of extraordinary. Evolving from a woman who once weighed 725 pounds, was reliant on a wheelchair and oxygen, and needed specially modified vans just to leave the house, into someone who can walk unaided, fit into a standard car seat, and proudly buckle her seatbelt without an extender. Yet despite this monumental weight loss of over 500 pounds achieved through her 2022 bariatric surgery, years of disciplined lifestyle changes, and a 2025 skin removal procedure, one very personal and symbolic milestone still eludes her: learning to drive, a skill that for most people is acquired in their teens, but for Tammy represents both the ultimate step toward independence and a deeply intimidating challenge bound up in past trauma, anxiety, and the emotional adjustment to a life no longer dictated by immobility. Before her surgeries, mobility was one of her greatest struggles. Simple acts like walking to the bathroom, bathing, or stepping outside required help. And traveling even short distances was a logistical ordeal involving her siblings, particularly her sister Amy and brother Chris, who ferried her to doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and the rare social outing. She recalls the humiliation of having to sit on the floor of a van because standard seats couldn't accommodate her size, knowing strangers were staring. The physical limitations were compounded by emotional ones, and even after her weight loss freed her from the wheelchair, her ability to occupy a front passenger seat for the first time in nearly 2 decades brought tears of joy and pride. It also threw into sharp relief the fact that she was still dependent on others to get anywhere. That dependence is not just a logistical inconvenience, it has roots in the very fabric of her life. And breaking free from it requires not only physical readiness, but also psychological resilience. Tammy's reluctance to drive is not born. of laziness or lack of interest. It is tied to vivid memories of a near-fatal car ride she described on the Creative Chaos podcast, where both she and the driver began to nod off, leaving her to stay awake to keep him alert despite not knowing how to drive, a moment that carved deep grooves of fear into her confidence. Another incident, far less dangerous but equally formative, played out in front of TV cameras when she took control of a golf cart with Chris in the passenger seat. The initial rush of steering turned to panic as she narrowly missed hitting a pet tree, prompting Chris to yell that she needed to brake sooner. An experience she later laughed about but admitted was still scary, especially when there's a tree coming. These incidents have cemented a mental link between being in control of a vehicle and imminent danger, making the leap to driving a real car feel overwhelming. Yet, despite her apprehension, Tammy has a clear and specific dream for her driving future. She wants a classic Ford Mustang GT, or as she calls it, an old-fashioned Stang. A car that blends speed, power, and a roomy interior in a way that aligns perfectly with her new physical capabilities and her taste for bold style. To her, the Mustang symbolizes not just mobility, but personal empowerment. A declaration that she has conquered her past and can choose a vehicle that reflects who she is now rather than what her body used to dictate. But for now, that dream is parked firmly in the realm of aspiration. Tammy openly admits she hasn't started driving lessons, citing anxiety as the main barrier. Her fears aren't just about mastering the mechanics of driving, accelerating, braking, turning. They're about the unpredictable environment of the road, especially the presence of semi-trucks, whose vast blind spots make her feel invisible and unsafe. In a TikTok video, she told fans she does plan to learn eventually. But for now, it's about baby steps, a phrase that captures the delicate balance between progress and patience that has defined her journey. This slow pace, however, has begun to strain her relationship with Chris, whose support has been unwavering but whose patience is not infinite. Working 6 days a week and managing his own family responsibilities, Chris finds himself stretched thin by the constant need to provide Tammy with transportation. And in moments of frustration, he has told her, "We ain't got years." A remark underscoring both the urgency and the emotional toll of her continued reliance on him. Some speculate, as Screen Rant did in a cautionary article,